Greetings petrol heads, welcome back to Automation the Car Company Tycoon game. Today we're gonna be looking at the second trademark AMW car that's, the first one being the Mantis. It's the Eagle. The Eagle is a small, sports coupe that tries to meet sporty ambitions with everyday usability. It is. I don't know what you. I don't really have a good real world car to compare this to. You could compare the lower end models to the BMW 2 Series, sure, but there are many different versions of this, and some of them are way more powerful than a 2 Series is ever gonna get. So yeah. Starting with the Eco 6. Now, traditionally the Eagle would have an inline 6 engine, but in this case the inline 6 engine wouldn't fit, which is kind of surprising given that this body shell is very much based on the BMW 1 Series, and we all know that the 1 Series in real life will come with a 3-liter inline 6 turbocharged option. The M1355i has a 3-liter turbo inline 6, whereas it wouldn't fit into this car. So that's kind of a bummer, and that is also why the turbo kicks in a little bit later than I would like on this engine. Is simply because we have 2 turbos now for 6 cylinders, whereas with an inline 6 we would have 1 turbo for 6 cylinders. And because of the increased airflow, because one turbo of a certain size takes less air to spool up than 2 of the same size, having 1 turbo for 6 cylinders would be beneficial in that the turbo would just kick in earlier. But yeah, we gotta take what we can get. So 200 horsepower, 224 pound-feet of torque is the base model, the Eco 6, and it is the economical version of this 6-cylinder engine. You do have to realize that AMW follows a different philosophy than BMW, in that BMW has the 220i, which is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with pretty much this basic body, and it makes 184 horsepower. So that would pretty much be what this would go up against. And BMW uses its 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder for a variety of different models, but the strongest one is the 228i. You can also have that same engine in the 3 Series, being a 328i, in the 4 Series, the 428i, and so on and so forth. But it makes 256 horsepower, which is what probably the next version of the Eagle would go up against. And whereas AMW has just a V6 block in this car and a V8 block, and they are tuned for different power outputs, except instead of using different just blocks for we only have 2 engine blocks, but we can make 6 or actually 7 different models out of those, whereas BMW has not as many models per engine block on one given platform, like the 2 Series, for example, the 2 Series Coupe, yeah. Okay, what am I trying to say? Okay, I'm going off topic at this point, kind of. This is an aluminum chassis with fiberglass panels and the wishbone suspension front, multi-link rear. So same as the Mantis in that regard, and that is, the key element as to why this is one of our trademark cars. Again, AMW is is searching or trying to be lighter and more aerodynamic than its competition. And as far as weight goes, well, aluminum fiberglass, it doesn't get much lighter than that without using carbon fiber, and carbon fiber is extremely expensive. So yeah, 200 horsepower in the base model, 5 horsepower per cylinder setup on the engine again, of course. 6-speed manual, although you can also have a 6-speed automatic. Viscous LSD, 225s on the rear, 205s on the front. Alloy rims of 16-inch diameter. And then we have 4 piston vented discs up front, 2 piston vented discs on the rear. We have a fully clad under tray with cooling flaps that's going to help out with economy, even though it's still not quite where it should be in real life. 4 seats, premium interior is pretty much what you'd expect. Standard infotainment is also like it's okay. It's not underwhelming. It's also not like overwhelming in a car like this. It's pretty much standard. Advanced safety and pretty much all driver assists except for launch control. And then we have semi-active 10% active sway bars with a ride height of 210.8 millimeters. So overall, 49 drivability, considering this is a twin turbo V6, is actually not bad. 34.8 sportiness on a base model also says quite a lot of what this car is trying to be. 40.4 comfort is good. 26.4 prestige again. Well, this is a pretty... Well, this is the base model. 26.4 prestige is alright. It's only a 2.5 liter engine. And also fiberglass is not as prestigious as aluminum or carbon fiber, I guess. And safety 51.3 is on par with where it should be, I think. The prices, look, these are obviously not realistic. Before we go to the engineering and factory tabs, but I have built the Eagle in all of its models once before. Like, I was actually trying to get this video done for the last, like for yesterday, but then something happened, and that something was the following. I had all the models built, and then I set up the employees and factories. Like, the employees worked just fine, but as soon as I got to the factory, some sort of error popped up, and it wouldn't let me do it. And then when I closed the window and went to the main menu and then tried to load the car up again, that same error would pop up and the car was basically just nullified, and I couldn't load any model of the Eagle lineup anymore, so I had to do it all over again. And there's quite a lot of different versions of this car, so I don't want to risk that happening again, and that is why these prices are not where they should be. So let's say I actually think that I'm pretty confident that the BMW 220i costs basically 30,000 euros here in Austria. So let's aim for that as a base price, 30 grand for the Eco 6. Also, you can have all-wheel drive for all models. That would increase the price by, let's see how much that would add. Let's say all-wheel drive costs $1,000 extra on any given model. So the Eco 6, 30 grand. Next up is the Fun 6. That's still the same 2.5 liter twin turbo V6 engine block, although retuned, making 240 horsepower, 235 pound-feet of torque, revving a little bit higher, up to 6,800. Still getting 48 drivability, which is good. 7.1 liters per 100 kilometer it does seem more appropriate to 240 horsepower than 6.8 liters seems for 200 horsepower. I don't know. this will do. Oh yeah, we haven't looked at the acceleration. The Eco 6 would do this 0 to 100 in 6.5 seconds. This does it in 6.1. Let's see how fast this does the quarter mile. Okay, wait, what was it? 14.5 seconds. And this will get, wait, no, that's not right. Yeah, 215s front, 225s rear, so slightly wider front tires than the Eco 6. Actually, now this makes more drivability than the Eco 6, so there's not really much reason to go for that rather than this, except for maybe higher insurance costs. Economy also went down a little bit by doing this. Yeah, this is actually pretty well balanced, I think, overall. It would be one of those cars that I would probably like daily driving in real life. Simply because, well, it's easy to drive, but it's also sporty. It really is fun. That is pretty much why I chose the nomenclature fun for the setting between eco and sport, because it really gets the best of both worlds, and that's what makes a daily driver fun. Because, you know, it does handle more sharply than the eco version. However, when you're driving a little bit more ambitiously, then it'll still not consume massive amounts of fuel, and that's what makes it even more enjoyable on a day-to-day basis, I think. And yeah, so we had like a 50% markup on the Eco 6, so we will probably go ahead and aim for a little bit more here. Let's say this cost 32,000. Oh wait, no, let's maybe make that $32,500 perhaps for this, if the Eco 6 was 30 grand. Then again, all-wheel drive another one grand. Then we have the Sport 6. Which comes with 245s all around, giving you great handling. It should also come with 17-inch rims, I forgot that. It comes with a geared limited slip diff. It comes with a little bit of the quality in the aerodynamics. It comes with revised suspension, and yeah, it comes with a retuned engine as well, of course. 285 horsepower now from this 2.5 liter twin turbo V6, and yeah, that's gonna really help out as far as power goes. Economy is alright. It's not the greatest for this sort of power, but it's certainly not the worst either. And now this does the quarter mile in 13.7 seconds, and that's pretty good for a V6, you know, small and relatively affordable sports coupe. Yeah, 35 grand seems appropriate for this thing, although we could go a little bit higher as well. Considering that this is the sport model, you know, the sport is like a tag that you attach to a given car to make it sound more prestigious and more expensive. Therefore, you know, you can sell it for more money. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. I don't like that general philosophy. So let's just leave it at 35 grand. And with the optional all-wheel drive, it would be 36 grand. Okay, then from there we have the Eco 8. The second engine block used in the Eagle is a V8. It has a maximum family capacity of 5 liters, although for these applications it's gonna be at 4.5 liters. So the lowest output version has 350 horsepower and 385 pound-feet of torque. Also makes that torque earlier than the V6s. So that is a good old-fashioned V8. Although not really, because it's because it's twin turbocharged and also 5 valves per cylinder. So yeah, I really don't know why the 5 valve per cylinder setup died out the way that it did. Because if you mess with it in automation, which again is a game, not the real life, not the real world, but if you actually went and built the same engine twice, but once with 5 valve per cylinder and once with 4 with VVL, then you will find that the 5 valve per cylinder setup is not only going to make more power and better efficiency, it'll also make lower emissions and it'll be lighter. So I really don't know, like, is it the complexity? Is it the cost associated with this kind of head setup that has stopped manufacturers from using it, although it wasn't really popular at any given point, but it was used for some cars. Well, I don't know anything about this, so anyway, back to the car. 350 horsepower going to the rear wheels, 6-speed. Still, this also now gets a geared limited slip diff. All the V8 models have a geared limited slip diff, except for the Sport 8, which is gonna have a excuse me. Oh, I forgot to sign off in Steam before recording. That's okay. I'm sorry. The Sport 8 is gonna have an electric diff. So, medium compound road tires on this car. Still, actually, I think 17-inch alloys are more appropriate for this car. Then still vented discs, still a fully clad under tray and cooling flaps. Enough cooling. Interior hasn't changed. The suspension is the same as on the Eco 6. That's a general idea. Like the Eco 6 has its is set up to do a specific thing, and so is the Eco 8. They are both meant to drive in a certain way, and that is mostly to be very drivable, because they are eco cars and they're meant to be driven a lot, and people who drive a lot don't always drive ambitiously, or they don't always like a car that you know, handles extremely sharp. It's better to have a smooth handling car for, you know, for longer traveling, or for just driving on the regular, as opposed to a sharp handling car. And because of that reason, I set up the Eco 6 as far as suspension goes, and then basically cloned the Eco 6, put the V8 engine in here, adjusted stuff like gearing and cooling, and then that's the Eco 8. So this car will do 0 to 100 in 5.3 seconds. And a quarter mile in 13.6, so that's 1/10 faster than the Sport 6. Although the Sport 6 will destroy this car on the track. Next up, we will have the Fun 8. which is also gonna have a slightly less wide front tires than I set it up originally. So this has a revised version of the 4.5 liter twin turbo V8. It now makes 400 horsepower, 437 pound-feet of torque. Lots of torque, really, lots of power too. Like 400 horsepower in a car the size of a BMW 2 Series, that's a lot of power. That really is a lot of power. And it will still be going to 245s on the rear. And yeah, the suspension here is the same as on the Fun 6, because again it's meant to do the same thing as the Fun 6, so it gets the same suspension. And this car will do 0 to 100 still in 5.3 seconds, because apparently we have a lot of wheel spin. Yeah, we do. But once it starts going, it goes really rather damn quickly, 13.4 quarter mile. And oh wait, we forgot to adapt the prices, right? Eco 8. So the Sport 6 was at it was at 35 grand. I think we should place this at like 40 grand. Like that. 40k for a 350 horsepower twin turbo V8 coupe. I think that sounds pretty reasonable. Also the economy does 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers. Again, for a 400 horsepower V8, 350 horsepower, excuse me, V8 is certainly acceptable. You could do a lot worse. And then the Fun 8. If the Eco 8 cost 40 grand, this would probably be at like 42.5. Like that. Family Sport Premium, it does pretty well here. Muscle and Muscle Premium, okay, well. Again, don't take these plus 87% markups seriously, because I did not mess with engineering and factory tabs out of reasons I explained before. So, like earlier in this episode. So, next up is the Sport 8. It has a different version of the 4.5 liter twin turbo V8, 450 horsepower, 451 pound-feet of torque. Don't forget that extra one. Revving to 7,000 RPM, making just enormous power. It gets an electric diff. It gets sports tires. Excuse me. It should have 18-inch rims. It still gets pretty much the same brakes as all other models. That's the great thing. Like setting up the brakes for one model first, and then being able to use the exact same brakes for all other models. Like, as long as we don't get any brake weight, which we don't, I guess that's actually a pretty good strategy, so that, you know, you can produce the same brakes like millions and millions of times, assuming you sell a lot of cars, and that'll in the end make it so for the customer, buying a spare set of brakes is going to be cheaper compared to if each model would get different size brakes, because then, you know, you'd have to make all the brakes separately, and that would make each set of them more expensive. So obviously this also gets a revised suspension over the Eco and Fun 8. This has pretty much the same suspension setup, although slightly tweaked from the Sport 6. It'll do 0 to 100 in 4.6 seconds. And it'll do the quarter mile in 12.7 seconds. It'll also reach 300 kilometers an hour where it's limited. So yeah, this is a fast car. This is like, if you don't want to spend extra on an HP, which we're going to be looking at in a second, if you want to be like, this is basically the fastest non-HP Eagle you can buy. Just like the 340i is the fastest non-M 3 series you can buy. You get what I'm saying? So because the M3 is so different from the 340i in many ways, like bigger, better brakes, updated suspension, a revised engine, new transmission, better, you know, better everything. Basically, the M3 only sits on the same platform as the regular 3 Series, although, like, I don't know, more than 60% of all components are new. So it will be a similar story between this and the Eagle HP. So with the Fun 8 being at $42,500, I think this would be suitable of being at like 46,000 or so, because I think we can justify charging a little extra over the usual $2,500 gap between the models, because this does have an electric diff and just lots more power and different suspension and everything. So now we're going to be looking at the HP, which is the only model that comes standard with all-wheel drive. It also gets like a bonnet hump, these vents on the bonnet, it gets a wing on the rear. We got rid of the lip on the rear and placed it on the front, so we have two on the front now. And yeah, the engine is still based on the same block, although obviously heavily retweaked. It makes 620 horsepower, revs to 7,800 RPM, making an incredibly long power band up top, which is going to make this thing really fast. And again, it comes standard with all-wheel drive. It gets an electric diff 2. It gets a 7-speed double clutch gearbox. It gets sports tires with 19-inch rims, 275s all around. Magnesium rims too. It gets carbon ceramic brakes. It gets fully clad on a trail, though the other models have that as well, but active wing is certainly something the other models don't have. Plus 7 quality is also higher than all the other models. The interior is still the same, although with the addition of launch control. And this is also completely custom. This suspension is something you won't find on any other Eagle model. So this is yeah, the performance model. Why isn't it rear-wheel drive? I mean, given that even with all-wheel drive this makes a fair amount of wheel spin, rear-wheel drive, at least in the game, would make this thing really hard to manage. I think in the real world you could find a way of making this work, no problem, because, well, there are other cars of this sort of size and also power, but yeah, with all-wheel drive it's certainly easier to tune it well in the game. So 2.8 seconds 0 to 100. And the quarter mile took just 10.8 seconds. So this is a fast car. This is like 10.8 is, I think, 2 times faster than a McLaren 12C, which did it in 11 flat if I remember correctly. The Lamborghini Huracan would do it in 10.6. And so does the Aventador, and I think the McLaren 650S too. Or did that do it in 10.5? I don't know. But yeah, that's the sort of performance level that this thing can achieve in a straight line. It also reaches 200 miles an hour. Yeah, like 30 or 31 seconds to reach 300 kilometers an hour in a car of this size. I mean, you wouldn't really expect that, would you? Because if the basic Eagle would look like a competitor to the 2 Series, you wouldn't expect a sort of 2 Series-esque car to reach these sort of speeds and you know, go this quickly. Let's also see the lap time around Laguna Seca. $138.82. That's really good. That is actually faster than a C63 AMG Black Series. And keep in mind that while it is true that the AMG C63 Black Series is only two-wheel drive and it has 100 less horsepower, or even more than that, compared to this car, at the same time, it is like a purpose-built car. It doesn't have back seats, it has a roll cage instead. It's got like so much downforce, more than we can actually add on this car in the game. It has it's been lightened. It's like partly carbon fiber, or you know, quite a lot of carbon fiber actually, so it would be a lot lighter, and we just don't have the same options in the game. Like once you've built a platform for a model range, you can't, like I can't, for example, make the panels from carbon fiber for just this car, because it'll carry over to the other models as well. And yeah, I mean, I don't think I want the base model to have carbon fiber panels. That would make it you know, needlessly more expensive. And for this car we would probably be charging around maybe not that much, 90 grand? Does seem sort of reasonable, right? For a car that will actually give the Porsche Turbo S a run for its money over the quarter mile. And it's also still pretty comfortable, 35.9. I mean, that's you know, not super great as far as comfort goes, but I think it'll do the job. Like, this is one of those weird cars, like what would I compare this to? Because obviously, like, A previous generation M3 GTS is a car that is also very much purpose built for the track. I mean, you can still drive it on the roads, but you wouldn't want to. You would want to, like, you can really drive this thing on the public roads normally, but it's also very capable on a track. So especially in this size, I can't think of a real world competitor for this car. But maybe that's exactly why we would sell some of these, because it doesn't really have any real competition. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Leave a like or a comment if you did. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.